Okay, so it's not as sophisticated as uncorking a fine bottle of wine, but aluminum screw caps are airtight seals for bottles and jars, and they're recyclable.
There are hundreds of everyday objects that are capped. This plant makes 250 million metal screw caps yearly in 12 different sizes. The caps are made from these 1 square meter sheets of aluminum weighing 450 grams. Some 3,500 thin aluminum sheets pass through this feeder. They begin by coloring the aluminum sheet with a colored varnish, a lacquer, and an ink. Then 12 minutes of drying is needed. The sheets that have been colored set off on a conveyor for drying. Then designs are produced. The coloring is applied by this varnisher. The aluminum sheets pass through the varnisher one at a time. Here we see the sheet printed. Above are the colors used. They are highly colored inks that adhere well to metal. Suction cups grab the sheets and send them toward the transport system of the punch press. This press will give the caps the required shape. But the caps have to be machined in successive steps by molds such as this one. The punches first cut the caps. Over 500 caps a minute can be produced. The blades of the punches are made of carbide, a very hard metal that can cut tens of millions of caps. At the exit point of the punch press, the caps are formed but don't yet have the right dimension. This stretching press performs the last 2 cold forming steps so that the tube will have the required length. Now for the second stretching. This achieves the desired diameter. When the cap exits the press, it will finally have the desired dimension. At this point, the cap now has the required shape. The caps now have to be decorated to the client's requirements. The lateral imprint is made with this silk screen type decorator, which colors some 100 caps in 60 seconds. The decorator uses an ink specially formulated to adhere to metal. The caps will then dry in a warm air oven. The dried caps are ejected and fall into a container. This other flexographic type of decorator prints 155 caps a minute. Here we can clearly see the ink roller which imprints the side of the caps as they rotate against it in a steady stream. All that's required now is to form the cap and make the cut. The profiling and jointing machine makes the cuts and reliefs on 200 caps per minute. Machining the cap takes but a fraction of a second. They sometimes have to assure the water tightness of a container such as a wine bottle. For this, a polypropylene liner is inserted which hermetically seals the container. A check is carried out under a light to verify whether the cut has been properly made and the ridges well formed. At last, the final steps. This screw tightening machine hermetically seals the caps onto bottles. The 250 million screw caps made here each year call for the machining of 1,000 metric tons of aluminum.
If you're young at heart, you might dream of working in a candy or chocolate factory. Oh, how sweet it would be. Well, at least for a little while.
These delicious chocolate confections are made from melted chocolate flowing into molds. The master molds are first made of wood or plaster of Paris. They are then reproduced as copies in an epoxy material. To allow them to become flexible and give them the desired shape, the sheets of epoxy are first heated to 177 degrees centigrade. The epoxy sheet is then placed onto the original molds. The sheet is heated, then lifted off. Suction from a vacuum system makes it adhere perfectly to the shapes of the molds. Here we see the epoxy adhering to the master molds. Still hot and malleable, the plastic has to be cooled. A jet of compressed air effectively lowers its temperature. The mold undergoes a visual inspection to make certain of its quality. And now we move on to the chocolate. This melting unit, whose shell is fed by boiling water, is like a double boiler and melts 1,500 kilos of chocolate in 12 hours at 40 degrees centigrade. The ready-to-be-filled plastic molds are placed onto a conveyor. Filling is done automatically. Liquid chocolate runs directly into the molds. This particular machine produces 400 hearts a minute. The hearts are filled with a concoction of chocolate, cream, and coffee, which has been brewed for several minutes. It takes 20 minutes for the chocolate to set as the molds move along on this 9-level conveyor. Well hardened, the hearts arrive at the unmolding point. The molds are turned over and a rod lightly taps them on the bottom to allow the chocolates to fall out without being broken. Here the chocolates fall out onto a sheet. As soon as they've been emptied, the molds return to the starting point on the line to be newly filled. During their transport on the line, the chocolates complete their cooling and hardening. Now they're going to be prepared for packaging. Packaging depends on customers' preferences. The chocolates can be sold in bulk or placed into boxes. Here, 185 hearts are put into each box. Like the pure chocolate, white chocolate comes in as slabs before melting. Milk chocolate is often delivered in the form of 3-centimeter pastilles. Some chocolates are hollow. They have to be molded in 2 halves. These chocolate bears need special decoration applied by hand before the pouring of liquid chocolate. This decoration is made of white chocolate to which a colorant is added. In just 1 hour, they will make 1,200 bears. They're made by joining 2 hollow chocolate halves. The assembly is done using a refrigerated rotating machine. This machine turns the molds a full 360 degrees on 2 axes and vibrates the chocolates to prevent the formation of air bubbles. The chocolates rotate for 5 minutes before being sent to the cooling conveyor, where they will remain for another 20-minute period. And now they're ready. At this point, the bears are unmolded and they head off for packaging. Each year, this company processes 500 tons of pure chocolate. Many thousands of products are made here using 400 different molds in a variety of sizes.